I'd like to welcome everyone here today, and if you would please stand, Commissioner Morgan will lead us in a prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. Most gracious God, we come to you today giving you thanks for all the blessings of this life you give us, those that are known and those that are unknown to us. Will you guide and direct our work as we are here today? Give us strength to do the will that you would have us to do, all of which we ask in the name of your Son, our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we'll move right on into our agenda, and I'd like to call this meeting of the Campbell County Commission to order. First item is to approve the September 24th, 2020 regular commission agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye, opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is approval of minutes of our regular commission meeting, July 9th, 2020, regular commission meeting, July 23rd, 2020, and special commission meeting, August 3rd, 2020, regular commission meeting, August 13th, 2020.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Motion carries. Approval of erroneous assessments, land consolidation, split tickets, probate documentation from the county clerk's probate office.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item deals with purchase orders, 2199,767 through 2199,954, and pay jackets. Monthly payments to Fifth Third for fuel card purchases, handwritten check to Unum for $7,595.37, and a handwritten check to Guardian for $19,478.78.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item we have are citizens registered to speak. We have Ron Flora, who is the attorney for the Pea Ridge PSD project. Ron.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Believe it or not, I will be brief. And we're not here after money. But
Wow.
if you've got some, we'll take it. We just wanted to come to district to kind of advise you that given the Public Service Commission's new rules and regulations, that Pea Ridge now meets the criterion where the Cabell County Commission has jurisdiction over our rates and our project. We are proposing a project of approximately $36 million to provide sewer service to multiple locations along Route 2 and on the Big Bend connector. We are also undertaking construction of a new wastewater treatment plant facility. The current A plant facility is woefully outdated and it's at times over capacity. So what will happen is that the district will send a notice of its intent to pursue this project to its customers. There's a 30-day period before we can take any other action. Then the district has to have two meetings, one for the first reading of the resolution, and then no less than 2 weeks later, another reading, hopefully adopting it. Then we come to you, and then you have 45 days to set this matter down for a hearing, and then you can approve, reject, modify, or do whatever you want to with the rates and the project. The district believes that the rates are reasonable, and we phase them out over a 4-year period to avoid any kind of rate impact or rate shock to the customers. I have several representatives of the district here, if any of you all have any questions.
What do you anticipate the rate increase will be?
It's phased over 4 years, and, you know, we'll get the commission a copy of the rates as soon as the notice of intent goes out.
By what finger of fate were we so fortunate as to receive this opportunity?
When the legislature changed the statute, any public utility providing wastewater or water service having more than 4,500 customers and annual revenues of over $3 million a year, the Public Service Commission loses jurisdiction and becomes vested in the county commission of that county.
When did you reach that threshold? Because I know we didn't have anyone that did when that legislation was passed.
It would have been our last rate increase, which was earlier this year,
Okay. So it just happened.
yes.
See, Kelly, if you'd have stayed there, you could have.
There's only, I think, a couple other counties that meet the criteria. I know Ohio County does.
I mean, that have utilities that
Mhm.
need it. There's some, that Mason County has one. And this is all kind of a new process
Yeah.
for the county commissions, but,
Right.
you know, we'll work our way through it, and we intend to abide by the statute and get all the notices out that need to be gotten out, and then we'll put it in the Solomon-like wisdom of the Campbell County Commission to see where we go from there.
We just soon give it back.
I understand. You know, there is the option that you can take no action and it just goes into effect. That's part of the
That's
statute
right.
too.
That's right. Well, we appreciate you being here. Does anybody have any? Jim, do you have more questions?
Is it funded by the rate increase? The
Yeah, there are
36?
several funding agencies, and that funding scenario is contained in the notice of intent. And it says where we're getting, some's grant money, some's, loan money.
Okay,
And the rates that we have are sufficient, but not more than sufficient to cover the debt service on it.
gotcha.
What's the notice gonna be to the ratepayers, for the public period, public comment period?
You mean, what will it contain?
What would be the notice, in the back of the newspaper, or were you gonna notify
No,
them?
we have to individually mail
Individually.
out 4,500 notices, and I will advise you that because there is a 4-phase rate increase, the notice of intent is 13 pages long, so you can figure what an undertaking that's going to be. But we'll get it done.
Thank you, Ron.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We
you
appreciate
letting
it.
us speak.
And the county will receive copies of those also, I take it?
Yes, I'll send a courtesy copy of the notice of intent, and when we get the resolution done, it'll be filed with the notice of intent attached.
Thanks to all of you for being here
Yeah.
too. Nice to
Good
see
familiar
you.
faces.
Okay, we'll move on then to the open bids for the fire escape painting.
Basically got any for the painting.
Oh, really? You want me to help you? Okay.
This is, everything we receive is for painting.
Okay. Then,
Chad get to do the painting? We don't-
yeah, we'll let Chad paint them since we can't find anybody. I don't think there's anybody that can do it the way it needs to be done.
I think I'm probably gonna have to advertise in the trade journal.
Yeah, because we've had a lot of trouble with that
That's something more than just.
from day one.
A legal ad. Usually no problem.
Okay, we're ready to open bids for the parking lot paving.
And then the first one is from Asphalt Contractors and Site Work Inc., 20 Dixon Dam Road, Lavallette, West Virginia, 25535. And looks like their total is $59,815.86. The next one is West Virginia Paving Inc., 2950 Charles Avenue, P.O. Box 544, Dunbar, West Virginia, 25064. The total price on their project is $55,000. And last one is from Acres Paving Inc., 146 Township Road, 1118 Chesapeake, Ohio, 45619. And they actually have broken out into two different, one's for just the back lot, and then the other looks like it's for the side, the new area, the side area would be, the new area would be 25,400, and the back lot would be 12,600.
Okay, you all want to take a look at those, make sure they meet the criteria, and bring them back to the commission.
Yes.
Chad will give you a job to do. Okay, thank you so much. Moving on to the next item is a petition for appointment of the sheriff to administer the estate of Mildred Carter.
This is Bowles Rice, out of Morgantown. There's a a claim that's a valid claim, but the executor has passed away and they not paid it. And it's a bill from Cabell Health Care Center. And consequently, since the executor has passed away, in order for them to continue to try to have this claim paid, they're seeking to have the sheriff appointed pursuant to the statute that provides for that. So I would recommend that you would allow the appointment of the sheriff to administer the estate.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion's been made.
I'll second.
Has been seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries, and you're welcome, Mr. Sheriff. I know you love those.
Yeah, I think it's in here though.
He can run, but he can't hide. Next item is entering copy of will as an original from the estate of Winslow Terry.
I have talked to Bellamy and Turner, who's the firm that prepared this will, and unfortunately, they can't find any person to give us an affidavit that says that to their knowledge, the will has been lost or destroyed, and that the decedent had made no attempt to change the named beneficiaries and so forth. So consequently, not being able to provide that to us, we are not able to allow this copy to be probated.
Okay.
Do you want to speak on that?
May I?
Pastor Beebe?
I'm Keith Weeby. I'm the executor in Mr. Cherry's estate. I lost the original, and that responsibility falls on me. Mr. Cherry was 102 years old. He has no heirs on his side of the family extended from him. He had all left everything that he had to Grace Gospel Church, and had been his intent for many years after he retired. He lived very frugally so that he was able to do this. And I'm embarrassed, and I think I probably lost the original copy, but as the letter from the attorneys indicate, this is, in their view, a legitimate copy of the original that was made, including the signatures that were on it, verified by both of the attorneys involved. I would appreciate any consideration you could give.
Mr. Beebe, as I understand what you just said, there's only one beneficiary, and that's the church?
Yes, sir.
So even if the will is not probated, and it was then now passed by intestacy, which is if you didn't have a will, that's still the only beneficiary that would get it. So, that won't impede the church from getting the proceeds of the estate.
I see.
So you'll be all right. I mean, they'll still will be
I
entitled to
understand.
receive it, so.
I understand. I would appreciate being able to process it as an executor of the state, if that is possible, if the commission is able to do that. I would appreciate that, understanding what you just said.
Right, you can go down and, you can be appointed the executor of the estate, and then handle it accordingly.
Okay. Well, as uncomplicated as we can do it, would be appreciated. It's been several weeks. We've got some bills that need to be paid, obviously.
Right.
And we can't move on any of that as long as this is in limbo, so, I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Sure, thank you, sir.
Should we not decide today, though?
We
The
can.
copy's okay?
No, it is not able to be probated because we don't have the necessary documentation that would allow us to allow a copy to be filed.
Right.
So we achieved the same thing.
Right, really, right. Since there's only the one beneficiary, nobody's hurt by it.
So we take no action, is that what we do?
Well, I just would indicate that I think a motion that to not allow the copy to be probated,
Right.
because that's what they've asked for.
Okay, so move.
Okay, the motion's been made. I'll second that motion. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no.
If I may, what's my next step then? What do I do?
To go down to the probate clerk's office, and you'll need a death certificate, that shows, the person's passed away and get appointed.
And they'll do that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Okay, that motion carried not to allow. We'll move on to the next item, which is acceptance of the fiduciary Commissioner Paul Beiser's report and disallow Cyrus' claim.
As you know, when we get a report from a fiduciary commissioner, you have the right to accept it or modify it or reject it. And in this particular case, Mr. Delp, who represents the estate, has filed an exception to Mr. Beiser's ruling that he thinks this claim ought to be paid, but there's sufficient reasons why it shouldn't be, and I'll let Mr. Delp address the court.
I'll
Mr.
try to
Hill.
be brief. I have, as he said, I filed an exception to Mr. Beiser's report, but Jerry Vincent Hughes died almost 21 years ago in December of 1999. He was survived by his wife, June Hughes, who got appointed as administratrix of his estate. There was a total of $325 clothing in the, as a probate asset in the estate. If she had come to me, I would have said, don't fool with her. But anyway, the process of her getting appointed as administratrix and filing that minimal appraisement caused claims to be filed against the estate. There were 7 claims filed. I have resolved 4 of those claims, 5 of them actually. So there's 2 other claims left. The claim of Homer B. Freimeyer and the claim of Raymond E. Cyrus. Mr. Freimeyer is actually deceased, and so is his wife. It took some little bit of doing to figure that out. Mr. Beiser, in his report and recommended decision, discovered that the Freimeyer claim was never allowed in the first instance. So he sent notices, I assume by certified mail, to Mr. Freimeyer, although we knew we sent them to his and his wife's, who's also dead, last known addresses. Of course, they came back unclaimed. And so based on that, in his report and recommended decision, he disallowed the claim of Homer B. Freimeyer. So we are not taking exception to that. So that leaves one claim of Raymond Cyrus. We do not know if Raymond Cyrus is even still living. I eventually filed a motion to disallow claims in this matter. I sent correspondence to Mr. Cyrus. At his last known address, we had a private investigator find out what that was. It's in Chesapeake, Virginia. And I sent a letter asking him to contact me about the claim. The letter was unclaimed, came back from the post office unclaimed. So then I filed a motion, served a copy of the motion in May on Mr. Cyrus, same thing, it came back unclaimed. So at that point, then Mr. Beiser said, my position was the claim was barred by statute of limitations. It's kind of a complicated, involved argument, and I'll get to that in a second, but Mr. Beiser in his recommended decision said that he didn't think the code section, which is 38-3-18, that puts us 10-year limitations on the life of a lawsuit or a judgment, applied. So I took exception to that. I filed my exception with the court, sent a copy to Mr. Beiser and Mr. Watson, and I've discussed this with Mr. Watson. But basically, the statutes involved are West Virginia Code 44-2-13, which says that the filing of a claim with the county clerk's office has the same effect as the filing of a lawsuit, which means the statute of limitations with respect to that claim is tolled or stopped. The problem with that statute, it doesn't say for how long. It's now been 21 years. So we're talking about a lawsuit. If Mr. Cyrus had sued Mr. Hughes on this claim and got a judgment, that judgment would only be good for 10 years and then it's gone. So we take the position that the 10-year statute of limitation bars that claim. I've researched this extensively. There is no case or no statute in any state in the United States of America that has an open tolling period. Every statute and every case defines an event that starts the tolling period, and they also define the event or time period that tolling is no longer in effect. West Virginia actually has two other statutes that are applicable. They're Code Chapter 55, Article 2, Section 22 and 55-2-21A. The first one applies to if somebody files bankruptcy, that bankruptcy tolls any lawsuits or any actions against that person, but only for so long as the bankruptcy remains pending. Once the bankruptcy is over with, the tolling period is no longer applicable and the statute of limitations begins to apply. The other section is Chapter 55, Article 2, Section 21A and B. And it says the filing of a suit tolls the statute of limitations. I think a lot of people know if you have a car wreck, somebody's hurt, you're hurt, you have 2 years in West Virginia to file a lawsuit over that. If you don't do it in that 2 years, it's done. But once you file the lawsuit, it tolls that statute of limitations. It stops running. However, if the suit is no longer pending, once it's no longer pending, that statute continues to run. So if a lawsuit's dismissed or whatever, the tolling period stops and the statute of limitations begins to run. So for all those reasons and other reasons I set forth in my exception, it's been almost 21 years. We don't even know if Mr. Cyrus is still living. There is money in the one thing I forgot to tell you, just briefly, how this came about. 16 years after Mr. Hughes died, a realtor from Clay County, West Virginia, contacted Mrs. Hughes and said, "We have a gentleman from New Mexico that wants to buy a piece of property in Clay County, West Virginia, that your deceased husband owned a half interest in." So it's kind of amazing how this came about. So we finally were able to resolve that. It closed. The other half owner got his $40-some thousand. Miss Hughes is, she's the only beneficiary of the estate. Her money is still sitting in the Clay County Bank, earning probably 0.5% interest per year. Now, we settled the pending claims of the people that were still alive. The bank paid them, that's taken care of. So there's, with the exception of that, all that money is still up there, and it's only benefiting the bank. And just finally, even aside from all those arguments, there's no way we can pay anybody. We don't even know if he's alive, so the money will continue to sit in the Clay County Bank. So we're asking that the court the commission to confirm Mr. Beiser's report and recommendation with regard to the Freimeyer claim. He disallowed it. That would be disallowed. It's done. And then also to overrule and grant our exception to his recommended decision on the Cyrus claim and disallow that, so Mrs. Hughes, who is now 78 years old and bad health, can get the money from the Clay County Bank.
There's also a doctrine of latches, which is what, basically, if you sit on your hands for so long, you're gonna lose your rights. And this has gone on forever and a day, and if Mr. Cyrus was around, you know, he would have had the opportunity to come forward and say, hey, I want to get my claim paid. And so I think, it's reasonable, because what happens now, if we don't let the money go to his client, it'll eventually just escheat to the state.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not what we want, so my recommendation is you accept, Mr. Delp's exception to Mr. Visor's ruling as far as it relates to the Cyrus claim, and, rule in favor of Mr. Delp so that he can send an order, which I think he's prepared, to the bank, which is what they'll use to allow the money to be distributed to the estates. That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that would be mine as well. So I'll make that motion.
Okay,
Second, just to ask a question, which maybe we're not entitled to know. What is the amount of Mr. Cyrus's claim?
I can't hear without,
The amount of Mr. Cyrus's claim,
I think it's $7,025.
That's right.
Or no, it's 75, 25, 7,000 something.
It's right here.
okay, the motion's been made, and you've seconded the motion.
second again.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
opposed, no. Motion carries. If you have an order, we can go ahead and sign that.
You need more than one copy?
Well, you'll need a copy to
I've
send the
got a
bank.
copy.
Yeah, we'll sign a couple of them. One you can keep and one we'll put in our files.
You just, you sign
Phyllis needs to sign
it. Same thing.
it. Yeah. There's no place for the commission to sign. There's a place for Phyllis and Joy Ferguson.
I just used the form that,
Well, no, the commission, it should
you want me
be-
just to
Yeah,
change it and get it to you?
yes, please.
Yeah,
But here's
that'd be
the-
fine.
Yeah, I just used the copy that I, you know,
Yeah,
so I'll add all three of your names
Right.
and get it to Bill, is that okay?
that'll be fine.
And after this is done, I will bring I will file the releases that I got from the people that were still living, and we could contact on the other claims, and then we can get this estate closed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Do you need the names?
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll move on to the exception to fiduciary commissioner, oh, that's the one we just did. We'll move on to an affidavit, copy of the will of estate of Alice Hall Ricard.
Yes, this is the kind of affidavit that we need in the Terry case, where they're indicating that they have made a diligent search for the original, and that they're unable to find it. And she's not ever indicated that she was going to change the beneficiary, so this would allow the copy of the will to be submitted to probate.
Okay,
So moved.
motion's been made,
Second.
has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Move on to a resolution in the matter of setting dates for the Board of Assessment Appeals, October the 8th, 2020 at 11 a.m.
So moved.
Motion's been made. I'll second that motion. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Aye.
Next is a resolution in the matter of the public test of the early voting equipment and election day tabulation equipment, which will be held on Friday, October 16th at 10 a.m.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is a letter from our sheriff for the employment of Eli Cox as a home confinement officer.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is that to replace somebody, or is that in addition to?
Just to replace somebody.
That's what I thought. You need more, don't you?
We can always do.
They've got about 140 now.
Is that all?
They've had it up to 160. But it's saving them money rather than going to Western Regional
Yeah.
Jail, so.
Here comes the sheriff.
They almost always hang around 150, don't you?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
moved.
Huh?
So moved.
Motion's been made,
Second.
it's been seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is an employment letter for Marcia Blake, full-time employee in the Cabell County Clerk's Office, and Glendora May Armentrout, full-time employee.
So moved.
Motion's
Second.
been made, it's been seconded, is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, we have a Cabell County Commission FICA deferral, and that's a memo that went out. Beth, did you want to talk about that?
Well, this is that payroll tax deferral that everybody's been talking about, that the president had issued a new order on. We sought advice of counsel and the payroll company. Don't know of any employers in our area that are doing it. It's not anything, there are rumors that it may be forgiven next year, but, you know, nobody knows if that's really the case or not. So right now, it just means if we didn't pay it this year, we'd have to pay more next year, you know, is basically what it is. And so based upon the advice of counsel and payroll company, the commission decided it's not going to participate in this FICA deferral. If you want, I could read the memo.
I don't think it's necessary.
Okay. But basically, the county commission will not be participating in that FICA deferral.
Right.
So,
Okay. What's your pleasure?
So move. It's not that we wouldn't want them to have a 6.25% addition to their check, but they don't want a 12.5% when it.
Next year.
Right.
Okay,
Second.
motion's been made,
Second.
has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, we have an update from Gordon Mary, Director of CCEMS.
Propaganda.
Not you.
You can't dazzle them with brilliance, you baffle them with
Absolutely.
paperwork.
I'm just gonna run over it really quick so we don't, basically, to give you an idea of what we've done since March when this outbreak, we created the COVID task force, which was Sheriff's Department, County Commission representative, and we meet every week and we discuss issues. It's been very beneficial. I think Chuck would agree. Connie, who works with the health department very fluently, has really given Chuck good ideas. He doesn't always agree with her, but most of the time it works well. It did. He's out there.
Yeah, him and Connie fight like husband and wife.
Basically, we visited all the stations, we went over decontamination, the N95, National Guard team came down and trained us on putting on PPE, prepared all the ambulances with plastic to keep the germs out, purchased additional PAPR units, I'm sorry, and P100. P100 is a half mask. It's a step above the N95, and it's got cartridges to breathe with. We also did PPE on donning and doffing for all first responders on a YouTube video. Managed Major Tassetine.
I like the donning and doffing.
Do you?
Yeah.
Basically closed our office to all outside traffic. That was probably in March, April. Closed headquarters to all field personnel, so we would limit the exposure of our employees. All our offices stayed open during the whole, even today, fully staffed. I just couldn't shut down. If I shut down the garage, basically we would shut down the sheriff's department and the ambulance service, and we had to stay open. And very similar to Chuck, I had to run the office for the billing. If I didn't do the billing, we wouldn't have money to function. And we managed to get through all that. Each office staff has their own office, so the chance of spreading was very small. We did education, encouraged staff to wear the street clothes into the stations, change at the station, shower, put their street clothes back on, go back out. 911 helped us. They did pre-screening. In other words, you call in 911 and they have a list of questions they're going to ask. You have a fever, have you been out of the country? And there's a few others, just to give us a heads up. Everyone that we answer, all the calls we go to, we do wear PPE because unfortunately, some people aren't very truthful. So we have to err on the side of caution. Talked to the health department. They also contacted 911, and people that definitely had contracted it would notify the health department so that, the health department would notify 911 so that we would know prior to going to that house to make sure. Pretty self-explanatory instead if I go over every one of them. Some of the good things was, obviously we purchased the COVA machine, or the curing machine for the decontamination. On the very last page, you'll see a whole list of where we decontaminated. I get it. And we've done that. We've done our stations, and just to,
Is that this?
yes, ma'am. And unfortunately, we've had some. We did have to help the sheriff. He was a little confrontational with me about this, but here's where we had to do one of his cruisers. Here's the field office. We did 2 offices there. So it was a good investment. We have used it. I haven't lost it. It's still here, contrary that it would be gone in 30 days.
I said 6 months.
Now you said 30 days. So, but,
That was very kind of you to take care of the sheriff.
but truly, we as an agency, and I consider you all part of the agency, we have done everything humanly possible to try to protect the employees and the patients that we transport, and that's what we're here for. And the very last thing I think sums it up about as of to date, any of my exposures or anybody that has contracted it has not been from work. It's been outside of work, and that says it all.
That's right.
They wore their PPE, they've done what they were told to do, and now, could it happen? Oh yeah, I'm sure it will. Since I said that, probably tomorrow I'll be saying. But do you all have any questions or anything that?
No, I don't. I think you've done a great job.
Yeah, it's great to have an update.
Right, well,
Great job.
Did it kill all the bed bugs in the sheriff's station?
I don't know. How about the bed bugs there, Sheriff?
We did all right. We had one of my deputies' wives works at the hospital, and she become exposed, and she had very mild symptoms, but hot, and then, of course, he tested positive. We were fortunate enough that there was enough separation from time off and things like that, that we didn't lose a bunch of people. And we moved everybody out of the building. We didn't let anybody come in on Monday. We did some disinfection, and of course, he's home. He still has no symptoms at all that is positive. So we're trying to get through that. So we've been lucky too, like Morgan said, we've been lucky, and it could hit us again and put us in a big tailspin, but so far we've done pretty good.
Did he
And
get a
that-
second test? Did he get a second test? Because
Not yet.
sometimes they're testing positive and then they get a subsequent one.
5 days before we get another test. It changes, it ever evolves so often,
That's
so
true.
I don't, we're just probably gonna just let it run its course. So right now, we got one guy off, and we're just gonna let it run its course.
At this point, they're not recommending a second test. If they're
slight headache and a little bit of sinus drainage. And she's-
Probably because her husband's gonna stay home for 14 days. Give her a headache.
Well, Sheriff, I'm sure you're happy we had that machine.
Oh, I want to later.
I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Is this the second COVID testing?
Yes.
Yes, that's the next item on the agenda.
Oh, okay, second. I was just gonna ask how many turned out for that, the first one.
The first was very interesting. We had 188 people turn out at Barbersville. We had very positive. We had people offering to buy us breakfast, pay for the lunch. We had some senior citizens which had expressed great thank you. Very honestly, they just said, I am scared to go down into Huntington with everything going on. And if I had not had the testing at Barbersville, she said she would not be tested. So our goal is to, tomorrow, from noon to 6, we're gonna do, it's a combination, we're at this first time, we're gonna do flu shots and the COVID testing at the station in Milton.
Will you have the senior flu shot also?
Whatever the health department brings will be what we have.
Okay.
That's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, that's the more potent one, yeah.
I do not know,
I mean, they
but
do have
it's
that.
free. All of it's free. You stay in your car, you don't have to get out of your car, and just come up noon to 6.
Okay, thank you very much
You're welcome.
for the update, and we've also covered the next item on our agenda, which was the notice of the drive-through testing in Milton. So let's move on to an update from Mike Davis, Director of 911. Mr. Davis.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Like Gordon, it's been a blast dealing with these fires. Our protocols and procedures have been dynamic since this started. We've had to explore a lot of things. We use a company called PowerPhone that gives us our pre-arrival instructions that are actually computerized, that drop down and tell us exactly what to ask based on the answers. We've had to work with them. We had to work with Gordon. We had to figure out first, what do we need to ask them? And two, what can we transmit over radio, which was a real problem because of HIPAA. And then, what can we do, of course, to best help the first responders get there safely and not get them exposed unnecessarily. One example of the things that we did was, as Gordon already mentioned once, we worked with the health department. They actually send us on a weekly basis all of the active cases in Cabell County. To keep it private, I have only 2 people in my organization that get that information. They don't have names, they just have addresses. They in turn take that information and put it into our computer system. So nobody knows what those are except for those 2 people, and it doesn't include me, which is great. But what happens is if your house has been flagged and we get a call at your house, then on the screen it comes up that there's a problem. We then in turn ask the responding units to call us. That's the only key we have. We need you to call in before you arrive, and they do, and then we inform them of the possible problem. That has worked quite well. As Gordon said, they're already prepared, but this makes them that much more prepared when they walk in the door, that this could be a problem. So that system has worked quite well. And I will say, Gordon, his staff, the sheriff, everybody's worked with us to help us get these protocols in place, because this is an area that we're not good at. We don't know about the health issues, so they've been very beneficial to us. We had the health department actually move into our building, their call center, on March 9th. They stayed for 23 weeks. And they didn't have the phone system at the health department set up so that they could take all the calls that they were going to get from people questioning what to do if they got the COVID and so forth, so on. So they used our training room. They were great neighbors to have, but it was, of course, added to a little bit of the traffic in our building, but that worked for 23 weeks. They put in a new phone system and they moved out on August the 14th. As soon as school started, we took that same space and are now using it to allow our employees that have these issues with schools to bring their older children in, and they can sit in there and have access to the internet so the kids can do their homework. Hasn't been used by a lot, but it has been extremely beneficial to a few that are single parents. And it's worked out real well for us. So that's an isolated room, so it's not an issue for us. The impact on our center itself, as I've stated in meetings before, one of our fears was that we get this germ inside of our building and devastate our workforce. Unlike the Sheriff's Department, EMS, they all work with state standards, so that you theoretically could bring someone in if they got devastated with the virus. We can't. Our center, we could theoretically bring people in to do the same job in other counties. They don't know our equipment, they don't know our protocols, and they certainly don't know our geography. So the learning curve would be huge. So it's been a huge fear from the very beginning. So we've done a lot of things to try to keep that at a minimum, our exposure. Originally, we locked the building down completely to the public. It was not there. It's now open to the public in the front lobby. They come in, we don't have that many people that walk in, but people come in to get records, address issues and so forth. And we do allow them to come into the front lobby. We meet them at the lobby with a mask and take care of whatever business is necessary. We also hired a new part-time cleaning individual, and she had experience in cleaning, and she has done an absolute amazing job. Our building's the cleanest it's been in years, and that's, of course, very beneficial. Our shift personnel have also taken on some extra duties. I mean, they go through and clean all the door handles daily, things that she doesn't do because she's there part-time. But they've all had no issues with coming in and helping clean things up. We have them screened at the door when they come in, the thermometer and so forth, to make sure there's no fever issues. Their consoles, which is where they work as far as dispatching, they sit there the entire shift, and those are deep cleaned every single shift. When one comes out, another one comes in, it's completely deep cleaned with all the things we can use to sanitize the area, just to minimize it. We have masks available. Masks are not real conducive to our work environment. Communication is what we do. It's really hard to talk through a mask, and we can't make a mistake. So masks are available if we have somebody that really wants to wear them. We've even invested in some of the plastic ones so that they're not as muffled. But most people don't use them, so we target social distancing instead. As long as we keep them separated, we feel like that's the best effort we can do in this situation. We've actually emptied up a storage area so that we can make another office, because I have two captains working on the same office, and we're trying to get them separated. So they don't have to wear the masks and go through all this. We do encourage our employees to take their lunch breaks in-house, so they don't go out and just continue the exposure or get the food delivered. We have a fully equipped kitchen, so they can they can actually make their food within reason. And we recently bought new headsets. Every one of our dispatchers wear a headset that's got a mouthpiece and so forth. It's very streamlined, but at the same time, it's very hard to use with a mask if they choose to do so. And they're very, very hard to clean. So recently, we normally replace 2 or 3 a year. Recently, we ordered and bought new masks or new headsets for everybody that works in there. So they're getting a brand new one. They haven't actually got the door yet, but they're coming. We've also turned that in for reimbursement for Chad, who's been very beneficial with that. We're hoping that will offset the cost. So we've done a lot of things. The actual impact on our personnel, we have 38 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. Before the COVID hit, we had the flu go through our building, so we know how this works, including myself. We had many get the actual flu. So we were really leery about everything here. So far, we've had 9 people tested for COVID in our building. We've had 19 quarantined for some reason. A lot of our individuals, their spouses work in medical fields and so forth, and when they get tested or they have a problem, then we have the same issue within in-house. We've had several people miss days because of quarantines, but like Gordon said, and I know it's going to bite me as well, we haven't had 1 case in-house. So what we're doing has worked so far, and we're hoping it continues.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anybody have any questions?
You all back to work? You were working from home some, or you?
We had some working from home originally, yes, sir. Yes, they've been back to work for quite a while. Just took kind of the same steps they took here initially because it was escalating, and unfortunately it's escalating again, but we've taken other measures, so I think we're in good shape.
When you have children in that big room, are they separated or separate themselves?
Yes, sir. There's more separation than we have in here. And so far, we've had like one a day maybe come in. We've got one individual who lives in Ohio, and if his son couldn't come there, he would be missing some work for us. So our goal was to get people in to make sure we had our shifts covered. If we had any issues.
I think that's an excellent idea.
It's worked real well. And we have one of our administrative staff actually homeschools her own kids, so she's a very experienced teacher. So when somebody has a problem getting on something or whatever, she can stop a minute and help them and assist them. So their parents can go ahead and do their job. And we also have cameras in that particular room, so they're monitored at all times, and it's working out real well for us.
Good.
I know several local employers that are doing that,
Good.
because the alternative is daycare.
Yeah, that's all we can do, because it's a real hardship.
Thank you all for the updates.
Thanks very much, Mike. We appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now we'll move on to the employment of Michael Carl Miller, full-time paramedic, and reclassification of Darren Janiker, per diem EMT.
So moved.
Motion's been made.
Second that.
It's been seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Gordon?
On the last one, it's not per diem, it's full-time.
Okay. That would be Darren Janiker.
Yes, I had both classes on, couldn't read.
Okay, motion's been made. It's been seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next is a letter from Irv Johnson, additional compensation, assessor's certificate of compliance, farm census of 2020.
I would like to amend that and having you part of it to have a haircut.
That's the part of it I don't think you're gonna see happen right away.
I withdraw my motion.
Much needed, I'll have to agree.
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is resolution, a state budget revision, number 3. Oh, my
We
gosh.
should enter that into the record.
Oh, my goodness. You want to do the rest of the budget revision?
Yes, this was the budget revision of Sheriff's Department, the law enforcement, 700 account, putting reimbursement money back into that for overtime.
Okay.
So moved.
Motion's
I'll
been
second.
made, it's been seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next item is an executive session to discuss the opioid litigation. And we need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion's been made, it's been seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, we're back in regular session following an executive session where no action was taken. At this time, we'll move to finish our agenda, and we need to place on record minutes to be recorded. Salt Rock Regular Board PSD, regular board meeting July 14th. Salt Rock PSD, regular board meeting August 11th. Culloden regular board meeting July 15th. Culloden special board meeting July 29th. Pea Ridge PSD, regular board meeting June 8th. Pea Ridge PSD, regular board meeting July 13th. Pea Ridge PSD, regular board meeting August 10th. Milton Volunteer Fire Department, report of excess levy funds. The County Commission of Cabell County, West Virginia, Commercial Development Improvement and Refunding Revenue Bond Foster Foundation, $20,737,500. Pea Ridge PSD Field and Managers Report, May 2020. Pea Ridge PSD General Ledger Balance Sheet and Income Statement, period 12, year ending 2020. Pea Ridge PSD Field and Managers Report, June 2020. Pea Ridge PSD General Ledger Balance Sheet and Income Statement, period 1, year ending 2021. Pea Ridge PSD Field and Managers Report, July 2020, P Ridge PSD General Ledger Balance Sheet and Income Statement, Period 2, year ending 2021. That was a lot.
It was a lot.
So moved.
Motion's been made,
Second.
has been seconded. Is there any discussion concerning the documents to be recorded? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries. Next, we have the Commissioners' representation reports. Does anybody have one? Hearing none, we'll move on.
And I think, Jimmy, I don't know, we had a meeting of the airport authority.
Yeah, let me
Oh, okay. You'd like to tell us about
Get
that?
copies of this for a minute.
Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to sign?
Huh?
Is there anything else to sign?
7 copies.
Not that I'm aware of until we get the actual finished meeting where we have to sign. So you met with the airport authority?
Remember, I'm a member of the airport.
I know.
Right,
But
and
I-
Carl Bailey was here,
Okay.
as well as the members of the.
Between Carl and David Clark, there wasn't using anybody else beating it.
I'm sure you're right about that. I'm sure of it.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am.
I guess the reference was made to the request by Mr. Ramey, and they determined from conversation with the Secretary of State's office that they did not have to be a corporation. So therefore, they didn't need any corporate minutes and other things, although they should have had an annual report, although they didn't have any money in or any money out. They talked about the various other things that was being used for. At his departure, Mr. Bailey turned around and said, well, you all can have it if you want it for $860,000.
Huh.
And,
Yeah, I want to buy my land back.
yeah. Mr. Clark had evidently all of the records that exist for the airport authority, and stack a couple inches tall, and said he would meet with Mr. Ramey at any time if he wanted to look at those or copy them. And that was the motion that was made, and that was the end of the meeting. I guess it would be the board, the commission, said they weren't gonna do anything unless the commission, as a whole, took some action. And I said, well, guys, right now I'm just a member of your commission. I may be a commissioner. And there was much discussion over, well, we didn't need written permission for what we did because you all knew everything we did.
I didn't.
And I said, really didn't make any difference if we all did, the commission took no action. So, that's, in our opinion, everything that's been done has not been approved. So, rather than shout and scream, the meeting adjourned.
Okay.
Well, Scott Bice, he made the motion that, that airport authority, because the question came up about maybe establishing a new lease with, rent payment. He said, well, that's up to this county commission to make a proposal to them, and they would take it under advisement, and if they wanted to do something, they would. If not, then Carl says, you know, I'm gonna stay with what I've got. If they are a public agency, and there's a statute that makes, Jim read it to them, that makes reference to that fact, they, as far back as 1984, failed to make those annual reports to the Secretary of State's office. And if you do that for 2 years running, then your corporation is gone. It's no longer in existence. And so the lease is dated 2005, and the amendment's 2008. But if they're not in existence, they can't be signing any documents, you know, so that's where Ansel was coming from, I think. And so that'll be a big, if we have to go to court, that'll be a big issue as to, what kind of entity are they? Because this girl at the Secretary of State's office was telling David Clark apparently that, well, you don't have to be a public agencies, but I don't know if that's true or not.
We can't do all this for a private company.
No. So anyway, and that's, so that's sort of where it was left, you know, if this commission wanted to make a proposal, so be it, you know, when they would consider it when tendered to them.
Well, we had talked about our proposal being to eliminate the authority.
Well, and I mentioned, I said, look, you know, I'm not speaking for the commission, but my personal observations is, we're receiving no rent for the money, for the land, and if we had a druthers, we'd just rather sell the property at public auction. And that's what I made reference to them about.
But somewhere in there, we need to dissolve the authority if they don't want to dissolve themselves, and they obviously don't. Because once that's out of the way,
But if that authority, we can, you know, dissolve them, but they're really not in existence now if in fact they have,
Absolutely.
you know, the 2 years running and they fail to make it. Because I've had that done with the corporation I represented, so I had to go and actually do all the reincorporation of it, you know, like it was brand new again.
well, if there is no authority, then why are they meeting and making decisions?
Well, because they're of the opinion based on what this girl, Secretary of State's office said, that we don't have to, if you're not a public agency, quote unquote, there's about 8 or 9 throughout the state that are, but you don't have to be. So if you're not, then you don't have to comply with those filing of annual reports. That's,
Do you think that's what that person said, or they just kind of,
no, that's, I mean, that's, he had some emails, and that's what she said.
okay.
Okay. Yeah. Tom Scar is Carl's,
Attorney?
and it said, David did want to correct one thing you mentioned to me. You are correct that the Tri-State Airport Authority is not registered with the West Virginia Secretary of State, but the Charleston Airport Authority is. Although it's known as the Yeager Airport, the applicable airport authority is the Central Regional Airport Authority, and it's registered with West Virginia Secretary of State. Although, as we discussed, there is an argument that it does not have to be. That was from Tom Scar. So what they were saying was, well, why should we be a corporation when Tri-State Airport is a corporation? You know, I said that's a matter to be determined.
Right.
And if you were, then your reports are not where they belong, and if you weren't, then none of this is legal in the first place.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you know, Carl says, you're out to get me. And I said, no, don't think so. Well, all these, I didn't realize he had evidently, once again, unsigned letters, which is a terrible way to do things, but about the noise and about alcohol and about the FAA, I guess, wasn't it?
Right,
Mhm.
and
Three
they're setting off
unsigned complaints.
fireworks,
Fireworks.
because He said they don't sell gas out there, but I think they do.
I think they do too.
I mean, you got all those planes, you know they're gonna,
Plus those campers that come in and out
Yeah,
here from
that's-
all over the place.
yeah, he's got that.
Well, I
15 sites.
saw there where they have a disc golf course now.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
See,
Yeah,
did
now-
we know about that?
No, and you have to get approval from us before we make any improvements, quote
Well, they
unquote.
built the restaurant before I ever knew
And they
it.
put an addition on that restaurant.
Yeah, I knew they had
Yeah.
expanded it, but only after it was done.
Yeah, yeah.
Nothing has come through this commission.
And that
No,
was,
the only thing they asked for was to build a hangar, and we said no, or something like
I
that.
think so. Yeah,
yeah, that was brought out to them. And even if they didn't or weren't required to file the annual reports, they are required to file a statement each year about the receipts and disbursements, even if they don't have any. As I said, well, then you just file a report that we don't have any, but you're still required to file.
no, it's complicated,
Yeah, it's
as I
not
knew
gonna
it
go
would be.
away. We're gonna, it's gonna be something we're gonna have to,
Well,
What do you suggest the next step would be for us?
we can do nothing. I mean, and it won't go away, but it'll just be there,
Well, he'll keep on expanding and doing his thing.
yeah. Or we can, you know, I said, do we all wanna sit down and see if we can figure out some compromise or something? And they didn't wanna do that.
well, I mean, that's where Jim made that representation to him. Hey, there's gonna be a lot of legal fees involved where you have to go to court. So is there any way we can reach some sort of an accord amongst ourselves, i.e. maybe a new lease with a rental? But Carl Bailey doesn't want that.
Oh,
He says,
no.
I got a lease till 2036, you know. Right, right.
He's saying that he's got a place up there worth $860,000.
When Jim and I were talking about it, I said, he threw that out, and I said, I wonder where he got that figure from, because he didn't
Wonder
make any
too.
representation that this is what I've got in it.
But he's done all that on county property. The county's never gotten a dime out of it.
And I said, and Kelly will understand this, if I'm leasing property and you build a house on my lease, when you leave, that house is mine.
That's right.
And I
Absolutely
said,
right.
hey, anything, improvements you're putting out there, when it's terminated, of course, there's provision about whether we supposed to reimburse him, and then there was an issue, well, what kind of value do you do, fair market value, do cost, or what, and that came up.
But the lease is not, it's unenforceable now.
Well, I mean, if they are supposed,
They've not,
if they
held up
if
their
they are
end.
a public agency, then they're no longer in existence since 1986. They're just gone, that corporation is now gone.
but lack of notification to the county commission when there have been improvements, wouldn't that be in violation of the lease that was in effect?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what they're required to do as well, yeah, and we've never given, which says won't be unreasonably withheld, but, we still are supposed to let them know, yea or nay.
I just think we need to put the baby to bed in some manner, and whether we sell it or,
Well, I mean,
Redo the lease?
I got the impression, that's what you would rather do.
But you're gonna have to resolve this issue first.
Oh, absolutely, right.
I mean, something has to be
He
done.
would be the primary, obviously, bidder at a public auction, but he didn't wanna go pay a big sum of money for it.
Mm-mm. I wouldn't either when I can have it all free.
That's right. That's exactly right.
I mean, it is a nice business, and you hate to lose that for the county, but at the same time, we have to make sure that it's done appropriately.
Right, right. And we really are, and then with Scott being here, I didn't wanna go into a lot of that, but everybody agreed it was a sweetheart deal.
Huh,
Bob
of course
and
it was.
Scott, yeah, I mean, you kidding me?
I screamed loud, but nobody
I know you
listened.
did. I know you did.
Told him this is exactly what was gonna happen.
Yep, you did. We were right there.
And the way the law's written, I don't think you can legally even do that unless they were a not-for-profit organization. which they're not.
I was just wondering if, whether the authority exists or not, that, ask for bids to operate, whatever, Newland Airport or whatever it's called. And if public auction for bids, I mean, and if somebody wanted to bid on it, then they'd have to figure out how to, if they're Carl's buildings, or if they're our buildings, I'm not sure how that would work exactly. I was just trying to figure out a way to let Carl run the thing, but pay us money.
I don't think he's gonna be willing to do that.
What's that?
I don't think he'd be willing to do that.
There was an interesting comment yesterday at the Y board meeting that on the eastern end of the field, that one of those industrial sites were wanting to get a portion of that field. And so the YMCA was saying, well, okay, on the western end, which is, abuts their property where Kennedy Center is, do we get some additional space or whatever? And then, as you saw in the paper about that Big Bend, if they're gonna put the Ohio, a bridge across there, it goes right through that airport. So it'll be gone whenever they want to.
I thought it missed the airport.
They indicated to me.
If
they
it
thought-
comes straight off of Big Bend Highway,
Yeah, I guess
I think it misses the
it
airport.
might miss,
But it might get that one in too, I'm not sure.
Right.
I've looked at those maps, but I really don't remember.
yeah, right. So there's, there's a lot.
Well, I don't know what is legal and what is not as far as them signing or providing the reports to the Secretary of State's office, whether they're in existence or not. But we do have the power to dissolve them, and that's the only way we're going to get control of that airport again.
Right,
Because right now, it's leased to the authority.
right, and they sublease it to him.
So we have to get rid of that middle group before we can do anything.
But
And to me, that
unfortunately,
needs to happen.
it's, the legal issue is, are they in existence or not? I mean, that's, because that means their leases are valid or they're not valid. And Ansel gave them a list of, maybe, it's almost like interrogatories, about 10 things, here's what I need. And Dave Clark was sort of reluctant to want to do it unless this board told him to let him do it. And that file he has, like Jim said, it's about like that, but I'm of the opinion that it's not gonna have near of the information in there that we want. And,
I don't think it will, plus there's many documents that never came through the county commission that
Right.
they signed off on.
Right, right.
Which are not gonna stand up anyway.
he said, well, we've got minutes, but, I don't know if they do or not. Notices of valid agendas and, because if they, even if they are in existence, if they don't take a vote to do something, then they haven't approved it,
But then it has to come back and be approved by the commission.
But I mean,
And that hasn't happened, we know.
It's been very lax.
Oh, it has, no question. Well, he had put in the RV park there before I ever even heard that anything had been done. And then I didn't know that the restaurant was there until it was open. People were going there to eat. He never brought that before our group.
And he's got about 15 campsites.
Mhm.
And Chuck Zirkle was talking about, how expensive, you get $1,000 a hit on those things.
And it's full almost every night.
Yeah.
He does quite well there. I don't think there's any question about that, but
And I told him, he keeps making this assertion that people are out to get him. I said, my
that's,
personal observation is nobody, at least in this body, is out to get him,
that's his mentality.
And that letter, that unsigned letter, he said, well, everybody, we checked every one of those things off and none of it was factual, that kind of thing. But since it was unsigned, you know, who knows?
Yeah, how it came
real was.
about, yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to make decisions. We can't do it today, but I think we need to make decisions and move forward.
Right, I mean, it's
And-
not going away.
No, it's not, and we need to move forward with it. It's started now, we just might as well finish it.
Right, right.
So-
Scar's a good attorney, but Ansell's a good attorney.
But I'm shocked that he would take the case.
He's retiring, because they live out in Timberlake and they're getting ready to move.
Who's that?
Tom.
Is he?
Scar. Yeah, he's retiring.
He's not that old, is he?
I don't know how old he is, but I think they're moving maybe to where the kids are. It's usually typical. PJ just had a birthday yesterday, or the day before, his wife.
I guess we'd have to get Ansel's input.
Yeah,
So anyhow.
he's told us pretty much,
Yeah,
though, the
but if-
process.
So the commission gets it back. Then are we willing, if that's the term, to go through whatever all the legal entailments are going to be to either get him off of there or whatever? I mean,
But I mean,
My
the issue is, from Carl's point of view, you know, his position is, my lease is valid till 36. You can do whatever you want, but I'm staying there, and I think it's valid. So the primary issue is gonna be whether the lease is valid or not, because if it isn't, he's out. He doesn't have a lease. If it is good, then he does have a lease, you know, so
yeah,
that'll be the.
Yeah, but a lease is only valid if both parties are,
No,
or
but it's signed by both parties.
The
Well, I know,
in
but
the
if
beginning,
they're-
it was signed by,
if they're honoring the terms of the lease. If they're
Well,
not
that's-
honoring the terms of the lease, then
That's
it's
true.
no longer valid. It may take a court action to determine that it's not valid, but
Well, that might be,
both parties have to hold up their end of the lease.
one, two, you know, the second entity of the lawsuit, okay, you maybe are valid, but you've not complied with the terms of the lease, so now the lease should be vacated, yeah. Because you haven't given us notice of, like you're supposed to, and things like that. That would be the second argument that you
What's
would make.
it say in the lease if you don't, follow the terms of the lease? What's the clause in there that says if you don't do
It
this,
probably says,
then